In a world where society is shaped by superpowers, Shuan, a young man who sees everyone as walking pigs, is faced with the bizarre reality of his own power. Yes, that's right, pigs. Diagnosed as a lunatic by doctors and humiliated by his ex-girlfriend, who sees him as a dead weight, he discovers that his curse is actually a divine gift. Now, with the profession of a god-level pig butcher, he is ready to turn his mental illness into a lethal weapon and show everyone that useless trash can be the greatest predator they will ever see. If you like it, comment asking for part 2, leave a like, and subscribe to the channel. On a sunny morning in a large hospital on Earth, in the neurology department, a young doctor faced the patient in front of her and asked, as if to confirm, "You said that everyone you see looks like pigs." Shuan remained silent, neither denying nor offering explanations, but his silence was enough for the doctor. Her face flushed slightly. She leaned forward and asked, "Are you kidding me, kid? Are you saying that I also look like a pig to you?" Shuan calmly raised his eyes and nodded with the same serene expression, confirming that it was true. That beautiful face was, in his eyes, nothing more than a shiny pink pig. The doctor simply froze, awkward, and a little embarrassed, murmuring that it was the first time she had heard of a case like that. Her eyes lit up as if she had an idea. She found Shuan incredibly handsome, and it was a shame he had that bizarre condition. Taking a deep breath, she slowly unzipped her white coat, revealing what we all want to see here, but which the damn YouTube won't allow. She insisted that it wasn't seduction, but a medical exam. First, she had to check if the boy's hardware was still functioning normally. "Does anyone know where this office is? I think I need to be examined too." Smiling, she asked him what he thought he was seeing, and confidently declared, "I'm so attractive that even someone mentally unstable wouldn't see me as a pig." In Shuan's eyes, however, those two seductive mounds on her chest were two pig heads. Strangely, they even smiled at him. Despite the shock in his gaze, Shuan remained calm and confirmed once more that in his mind they were indeed two pig heads. A desperate question echoed, "How the hell am I supposed to feel excited by two pig heads?" The doctor choked, quickly covered her breasts and backed away a few steps, shouting, "You lunatic!" After a few moments, the awkward atmosphere began to dissipate. The doctor pointed to a model of a spine on the table and began to analyze his spine. "Your spine really has serious problems. See, this part is completely different from a normal person's. There are even some deformities pressing on your nerves, seriously affecting your visual cortex and brain function. This is probably the reason you see everyone as pigs." Shuan just nodded, as he no longer expected empty diagnoses. What he wanted was a cure. But in response to his silent hope, he only received a sigh. The doctor admitted helplessly that the only solution would be to adjust his spine and brain, but the success rate was extremely low. If it failed, he could be paralyzed from the neck down for the rest of his life. Upon hearing this, Shuan just gave a slight nod, as if he were listening to someone talk about the weather. Then he said, "Doctor, are you done talking? Can I have my spine back now?" The doctor froze for a moment, confused. She didn't expect him to believe that the spine model on the table was actually his. "Damn, I'm starting to think this guy has the mind of a pig." Watching his serious, albeit astonished expression, she couldn't help but feel pity. What a waste! Such a handsome young man, but completely insane. The scene shifted to a busy city street. Inside a crowded bus, Shuan was drowsy, holding a thick folder tightly in his arms. Although the bus was full, no one dared to sit next to him, probably because of the large words written on the folder, "Severe mental disorder since childhood." Shuan saw everyone around him as walking pigs. Perhaps it was related to the fact that his parents were butchers. In fact, this didn't affect his daily life much, except for one thing, choosing a partner. Today was an important day, the day of profession awakening. Ordinary people could awaken as warriors, mages, healers, or archers. But he was nervous because of his strange condition. What could he become? Shuan hoped that after the ceremony, this affliction would simply disappear. The scene cut to King Shang Academy, where the profession awakening ceremony had been held for thousands of years. Shuan blended into the crowd as he walked through the academy gates. He sighed as he walked, worried that his condition might affect the awakening process. If that happened, he didn't know what the future held for him. It was then that a cheerful voice called out to him, breaking his thoughts. "Shuan, you finally arrived. If you had taken any longer, I swear I would have killed you." Before he could react, a beautiful girl appeared by his side and gave him a playful pat on the arm. But in his eyes, her delicate hand was nothing more than a fat pig's thing hitting him. Shuan shivered and turned to look, and as always, there was no stunning beauty in front of him, just a fat, ugly pig smiling at him. "Don't humiliate me like that. Seeing his expression, the girl became furious and embarrassed at the same time. She pouted and said, "Why do you always look at me like that?" Shuan remained silent. He didn't know how to answer. He had no idea what she really looked like. He just knew he felt suffocated being hugged by such an ugly pig. Another girl nearby teased, "Shuling Shuan is clinging to Shuan again. You two cling to each other like a couple every day. It's exhausting." "Oh, I think someone's jealous, huh?" another person added. "They are childhood friends, who knows? Maybe after today they'll get married and have many children." The teasing made Shuling Shuan blush intensely. She told them to stop talking nonsense and quickly pulled Shuan forward. Shuan's entire body was covered in sweat, and all he saw was a happy, red-faced pig chattering beside him. Inside him, a strange and indescribable feeling began to emerge. The scene shifted again, now inside the Qingshang Academy. Lines of students were lined up according to their identification numbers, all tense as they waited for their turn. The instructor's voice echoed, firm and imposing. "The awakening ceremony is about to begin. Now is the time to show the results of all your years of hard work. Strength, agility, and spiritual power. These three central attributes will determine what profession each one will awaken. The higher the attributes, the greater the chance of awakening a powerful class." The director asked the students to concentrate all their mental energy and give their best. The profession they awakened that day would shape their entire future. If they managed to awaken a high-level combat class, it would be like challenging destiny itself, becoming a legend, a symbol of glory admired by all. And of course, such a feat would bring endless honor to the academy. The air in the hall seemed heavy. Each student carried a mixture of hope and anxiety as they slowly approached the awakening stone placed in the center of the hall. After the signal, the first student advanced and placed his hand on the stone. It glowed but showed a disappointing result. Support class, intermediate welder. The student's jaw dropped, completely stunned. No one expected such a result, not even the director next to him, who shook his head in silence. The second student, support class, advanced bricklayer. The third, support class, low-level engineer. The crowd began to murmur. None of the first three had awakened a combat profession. The atmosphere became tense. The fourth student walked forward, trembling slightly, each step heavier than the last. Despite the hesitation, he placed his hand on the stone, but this time it was completely different. The stone glowed with an intense light. A faint golden glow spread, and after a few seconds of silence, the result appeared. Combat type, Shadow Blade Dancer, rare class. The entire hall was silent for an instant, then erupted in applause. "My God, a rare class. It's the first time I've seen anyone awaken as a Shadow Blade Dancer. He's really lucky." The director immediately stepped forward, smiling radiantly. "Student, what's your name?" The boy, who had just awakened the rare profession, answered respectfully, now full of confidence, very different from his previous nervousness. "Director, my name is Liu Jinlong." Ignoring the boy's proud tone, the director praised. "That's a great name. Go home and rest. I'll personally visit your family later to discuss your life plans." And Liu Jinlong left the altar, radiant with pride. At that moment, he knew that his destiny had turned a new page. The crowd continued to applaud. Brother Long, he's incredible." The ceremony continued in an enthusiastic atmosphere. Then the director looked at the list and called out in a loud voice, "Next, Shuan." All eyes turned to Ye Shuan. In the sunlight, he walked slowly and firmly towards the stone. Shulin Shuan blushed and looked at him with hopeful eyes, whispering softly, "Brother Ye Shuan, you can do it," as if she were pouring all her courage and hope into that whisper. One of the teachers next to the ceremonial altar watched Shuan's back with a worried expression. He knew a little about the boy. In his view, Shuan was mentally strange, but his attributes told another story. While most people had a total of about 3 points of strength, agility, and spirit, Ye Shuan had 10 points, more than triple the average. The director secretly prayed for a miracle. Shuan stepped forward and calmly placed his hand on the awakening stone. Suddenly a bright light exploded, followed by a furious whirlwind that made everyone's hair fly back. The crowd instinctively recoiled. The director's eyes widened in shock, and he shouted, "That color, golden purple, that's—" At that instant, the text appeared on the stone. "Divine class profession, God-level pig butcher." Ye Shuan was astonished. He widened his eyes at the words, "pig butcher." The director, who was still excited, froze in place. Why such cruel irony? The full title on the stone shone in red, Support Class, God-Level Pig Butcher. For a moment, the hall was in absolute silence until an explosion of laughter echoed. God-Level Pig Butcher. This must be a mistake. A divine profession. And it's for butchering pigs? Ridiculous. What kind of divine class is that? What an idiotic job. You can't even tell if this guy's lucky or cursed. The director's face darkened, filled with regret. It must be a joke from heaven on me. In all my years as a director, after so much effort, I finally witnessed someone awaken a divine-level profession, and it turns out to be a pig butcher, the most useless profession that exists. If only he had awakened as a master blacksmith, potion master, or healer, I could be proud. But this... With a heavy sigh, the director told Shuan to step down from the platform. At that very moment, a gleam appeared in Shuan's eyes. In front of him, a system interface appeared, displaying detailed information. Profession system activated, name, Shuan, rank, apprentice, level 1. Attributes, strength, 5, agility, 3, spirit, 2. Profession talents, small diamond, swine race enemies. Deals 50% more damage against pig-type enemies, gains 1% talent growth for each pig killed, receives 50% less damage from pig attacks. Butcher God's Blade. Choose a weapon to designate as your butcher's knife. Each pig killed with this weapon grants 0.1 free attribute point. Profession skills, small diamond, blood shadow carnage, level 1. Emits killing intent, causing pigs to enter a state of fury for 1 second. Shuan froze for a few seconds and began to tremble slightly. He read each line carefully, and when he reached the phrase, deals 50% more damage against pigs, he couldn't help but smile. For the first time in his life, his bizarre condition actually seemed like a blessing. He looked at the crowd around him, and as always, in his eyes, everyone was pigs. Pigs everywhere. The moment Shuan stepped down from the altar, all sorts of complicated expressions were cast upon him. Shock, disdain, mockery, regret, along with a whirlwind of whispers. He had awakened a god-level profession, but it turned out to be a pig butcher. The impact was like falling from heaven straight into hell. If Shuan had awakened a god-level combat profession, the best schools would have competed to recruit him, investing all possible resources in his potential. DJ Long shook his head mockingly, his eyes full of satisfaction. Haha, I really thought our school here in Shanghai had finally produced a dragon, but it turned out to be just a pig butcher. Exactly, someone replied. What was all the fuss for? Just for a butcher's profession. That's hilarious. A trash job like that, what's the use of being god-level? It's not as useful as a high-level alchemist. Brother Liu Jinlong, our King Shang school only has one true dragon, and that's you. It's no problem. Shuan's awakening as a god-level pig butcher just shows that he's continuing his father's legacy. Uncle Yi will surely be proud. My dad will also be happy. Amidst all the mockery, only Shuling Shuan took a step forward. She stood on her tiptoes and gave Shuan a light pat on the head. He just nodded calmly. Thank you, Ye Shuan. Shuan and Shuling Shuan were neighbors. Their parents were common workers, and since they were little, the families had talked about marrying them off in the future. Unfortunately, in Shuan's eyes, Shuling Shuan had always been like a chubby pink pig. Falling in love with a pig was simply too difficult. Still, seeing the scene between the two, the students around them turned green with envy. They thought Shuan was incredibly lucky to have such a beautiful girlfriend. At that moment, the director called the next name to be tested. Coincidentally, it was Shuling Shuan. She playfully stuck out her tongue and ran to the altar to awaken. It's my turn now, Shuan. Will I inherit Mum's seamstress profession or Dad's beverage manufacturer one? But no matter what profession I awaken, I'll always stay by your side. Hearing these words, Shuan's eyes widened in shock. He could feel the depth of Shuling Shuan's feelings for him. He waited anxiously to see what profession she would awaken. Earlier, Ye Shuan's awakening as a god-level pig butcher had already drawn all the attention to him. The crowd was agitated, no one paid attention to the next candidate, but the exact moment Shuling Shuan placed her hand on the awakening stone, something strange happened. A thick pillar of black light rose from the stone, shooting straight into the sky. Its glow reflected in the eyes of all present, making their expressions as dark as ink. The school courtyard, which moments before had been full of noise, fell into a deadly silence. Everyone was frozen in shock, mouths agape, staring at the immense black pillar. Only when a terrifying scream broke the silence did the crowd awaken. Legendary class! Someone awakened a legendary class! All eyes turned to the slender figure under the strange black light. Shuling Shuan, already incredibly beautiful, now appeared as a goddess from an ancient painting, surrounded by majestic darkness. A mysterious aura covered her figure. On the altar, glowing words appeared. Combat class, legendary rank, immortal of the icy soul sword. Director Jean Ming's gaze fixed intensely on the flaming black pillar in the sky. A legendary combat class? How is this possible? Her two parents were only lifestyle classes. This is a mutation. Zhang Ming's face flushed with excitement. He ran to Shuling Xuan, smiling radiantly. Don't worry, just say what you need. Qingshang Academy will give you all the support you need for your development. But Shuling Xuan didn't seem happy. She thanked the professor briefly and coldly, and slowly descended from the altar. The crowd began to whisper in low tones. One is a god-level pig butcher, and the other is a legendary immortal swordsman. Do you think Shuling Xuan will still cling to Xuan like before? You don't have to ask. Shuling Xuan is a genius, and Xuan is nothing. If he has any sense, he'll back away in silence. Everyone knows that from now on, their paths will soon separate. Congratulations, Shuling Xuan, Ye Shuan said, applauding. His expression was gentle, his smile sincere. I really wish you the best. But in Shuling Xuan's eyes, a complex emotion glimmered, vague, confused, even painful. Then her tone changed. Xuan, I admit there were some misunderstandings between us, but now none of that matters anymore. We no longer belong to the same world. Xuan's eyes widened in disbelief. He didn't expect the girl to change so drastically. Everyone present turned to him, their faces full of mocking smiles. She had just awakened a legendary profession and immediately announced that they were breaking ties. Okay, Xuan replied calmly, as if nothing had happened. But to others, and especially to Shuling Xuan, his calmness seemed only a mask to hide his wounded pride. I know this must be a shock to you. Don't try to pretend to be strong. Do you really think a butcher has a future? Please, don't blame me. Damn, what a kick in the butt this was. Her voice was choked. Her gaze toward each one was filled with pity. If you have no objections, then let's end this here. I hope you don't bother me anymore. Ye Shuan frowned slightly. A pig chattering in front of me, thinking it's noble, and still telling me not to disturb it. Go to hell. For Ye Shuan, breaking ties with a pig was no reason to lament. On the contrary, he felt relieved to be rid of her. If there's nothing else, I'm leaving. This reaction caught Shuling Xuan completely off guard. Liu Donglong stepped forward, his eyes burning as he looked at her. Xuan, do you want me to teach this guy a lesson? Show him his place? Seeing that Shuling Xuan didn't even bother to answer, Liu Donglong felt humiliated. He turned and took out his frustration on Xuan. Hey, you damn butcher, come here! At that moment, Ye Shuan was immersed in thought, wondering where he could find a pig to beat and level up. He didn't even notice the shout, completely ignoring him. Liu Jinlong's face darkened with fury. A simple butcher dared to ignore someone with a rare combat class like him. Already irritated from before when Ye Shuan had stolen the spotlight, Liu Jinlong finally exploded. I'm talking to you, are you deaf? He advanced and grabbed Ye Shuan by the arm. Ye Shuan looked at him indifferently, saying nothing. His calm eyes scanned Lindong's fleshy face without any emotion. It was that look, the kind of look that made Lindong feel as if he was being watched by a natural predator. A shiver ran down his body. He instinctively recoiled several steps until he stumbled and fell heavily to the ground. His face froze in disbelief. What? What was that? Just a look, and he made me feel like a pig tied to a block, waiting to be slaughtered. Seeing Liu Dinglong's fear, the students burst into mocking laughter. Someone ran to help him, asking worriedly, Are you okay? What happened? Humiliated and surrounded by laughter, Liu Dinglong's face turned red with anger. His body trembled with fury. Useless trash! How dare you look at me like that? You're just a damn butcher. Who the hell do you think you are? Blinded by hatred, he couldn't hold back anymore. Liu Dong launched a direct punch at Xuan's face. As a shadow blade warrior, even without a weapon, his blow carried the sharpness of a blade and increased physical strength. This was the terrifying power of a combat profession. But Xuan did not retreat. Instead, he returned the punch. His basic attributes were already incredibly high, and added to the ability to be the natural enemy of the swine race. His power received a huge boost, while his opponent's was reduced by half. The fists collided. A crisp sound of bone breaking echoed. Liu Junlong's face froze instantly. He screamed and staggered back, grabbing his hand, which was now grotesquely twisted. The crowd was stunned. Absolute silence took over the place. No one imagined that something like this could happen. Impossible! You're just a butcher! Liu Delong stammered, terrified. In this world, no matter how strong a lifestyle class was, it was still considered an ant in the face of a combat class. And yet, a butcher just broke his hand. Ye Shuan replied calmly, I'm a butcher. It's natural for me to have a little strength in my arms. So, his eyes narrowed slightly, you couldn't even beat someone like me. So what does that make you? The students were completely shocked by what they had witnessed. They couldn't help but wonder what had just happened when they saw Liu Donglong's twisted arm after facing Xuan. Liu Dinlong was on the verge of madness, furious and terrified. He never expected to have his arm broken by a butcher. Xuan, I'm going to take your life for this. Soon after, a spiritual blade appeared in his hand, a saber condensed from spiritual energy like the very shadow of death. This was the characteristic ability of the Shadow Blade Warrior class, manifesting weapons through energy. The crowd immediately recoiled in panic. Ye Shuan is finished for good. Why did he argue with the warrior? He should have just bowed his head and apologized. This is a rare, too powerful combat class. If he had surrendered from the start, none of this would have happened. Liu Donglong pointed his weapon at Xuan, full of confidence. He boasted that his saber was sharp enough to cut an arm like it was noodles. He said that if Xuan knelt and apologized, he might consider letting him live. Otherwise, he swore to destroy him right there. Holding the illusory saber tightly, he prepared to attack, willing to risk everything. His pride would not allow him to endure such humiliation in front of so many people. But before he could move, snowflakes began to fall from the sky. The snow, as if it had a life of its own, stuck to Liu Delong, freezing him in place. At the same time, he felt an overwhelming sword intent lock onto him like a lethal predator, forcing him to turn his head. He shouted furiously, "Lin Xuan, why are you helping him?" Facing a legendary combat class like hers was impossible. He knew very well that he had no chance. Lin Xuan replied coldly, "Leave them alone!" Snowflakes whirled around her non-stop, making the air so cold it seemed to freeze the atmosphere. She told both of them to stop, that she didn't want them to fight because of her, speaking as if she was someone worthy of being fought over. She walked slowly toward Xuan with a proud expression. "Xuan, as you can see, we no longer belong to the same world. This is the last time I will help you. Consider this a farewell to the past." Her words only bored Xuan. He wondered why that ugly pig was so confident. Then Xuan advised Xuan to leave the academy as soon as possible. "If Liu Jinlong comes back for revenge, I won't help you next time." Lin Xuan yawned and turned to leave. "If you're done, I'm going." To those watching his back as he walked away, he seemed burdened with loneliness. Some realized that he didn't seem to care at all about being abandoned by Lin Xuan. But others thought he was just pretending to be strong and hiding his insecurity about the abyss that had grown between them. On the way back home, each one walked alone down the street in silence, lost in thought about the system he had just obtained and how he could level up as quickly as possible. As he turned a corner, he heard a sudden bark. A disheveled grey dog, loose from its leash, bared its teeth and blocked his way. Behind the animal, the owner showed no intention of restraining it. On the contrary, the woman even smiled. The loud barks made Sean's ears hurt. In his eyes, there was a four-legged pig and a two-legged pig in front of him, both staring with the same unpleasant and hostile gaze. Trying to stay calm, Sean spoke politely. "Ma'am, could you please pull your dog back? It's blocking my way." The woman shouted in his face, "Is this your private street or what? Young people these days have no love for animals. You're big and strong. Why are you messing with a little dog? What does a dog know? It's not like it bit you. You have no manners." Xuan sighed. He was too exhausted to argue, and at that moment he had something else he wanted to test. He walked directly to the four-legged pig and launched a sequence of kicks, sending the dog straight to the afterlife. The sudden attack left the woman paralyzed with fear. She could only let out incomprehensible screams, trembling as she stumbled to the dog's lifeless body and cried, "Son, don't scare Mommy like that." The exact moment the dog died, Xuan received a system notification. "Butcher. Xuan has killed a member of the swine race. Plus 0.1% XP. Swine race bonus damage increased by another 1%. Exactly as he expected, Xuan couldn't contain his excitement. His mental illness had become the basis of his power, because to him, everything looked like a pig. His swine nemesis ability was effective against all living creatures. Not even dogs were exempt. At that moment, the woman came out of her shock, enraged. She ran towards Xuan, screaming, "You scoundrel! How dare you kill my son? Are you abusing an old lady now? I'll fight you to the death." Xuan remained calm. He took a medical document from his pocket and declared, "I'm mentally ill." The woman froze when she saw the official medical record. Her vision darkened. Noticing her reaction, Xuan knew the problem was solved. He asked, "Do you have anything else to say? If not, I'm leaving." The woman remained motionless, as if she had turned to stone. She never imagined she would encounter a lunatic. If he suddenly lost control and butchered her too, she would die in vain. Her attitude changed instantly. A cheerful smile appeared on her face, and she guaranteed that everything was fine, even recommending that Xuan take care of his health. Xuan put the document away and went home. When he arrived, he told his parents about the legendary butcher profession he had just obtained. However, Jinsu and Aikian did not seem surprised or disappointed. They received the news with satisfied smiles. Aikian thought it was great that Xuan could take over the family business. He said it was much better than spending his days fighting monsters. He even decided to take him to the slaughterhouse the next day to familiarize him with the work. He firmly believed that Shuan would become the most feared butcher in all of humanity, someone whose name would make pigs all over the world tremble with terror. After talking to his parents, Shuan decided to go to bed early that night to prepare for the visit to the slaughterhouse the next day. Every time I kill a pig, my damage increases by 1%. But outside his bedroom window, a figure dressed in black appeared. Kian noticed the presence immediately and then seriously said, "You saw for yourself, my son is just a common butcher. Stop interfering in our lives." The man in black replied angrily, "A legendary class butcher? Do you think that's common? Unbelievable. Kian, your son just turned into a butcher. Are you sure he's even your biological son? Do you want us to do a DNA test?" Provoked in this way, a cold, murderous aura exploded from Ikian's body, dense and overwhelming. "I already told you to stop bothering us. If you keep pressuring me, don't blame me for being rude." The man let out a strange and chilling laugh. "Relax, I'm just kidding. If your son really is just a butcher, the organization will no longer bother you." Saying this, he disappeared into the darkness. The next morning, Shuan went with his father to the slaughterhouse where he had worked for many years. As soon as they entered, a strong stench of blood mixed with pig feces filled the air. Kian seemed to enjoy the surprised looks of the other workers as he led his son to his own work area. There was a set of special knives used exclusively for butchering pigs. He firmly believed that a great butcher should have an excellent blade. He offered Shuan the chance to choose any knife he wanted from the set. Shuan walked to the rack and picked up a thick, heavy knife. The instant he held it, he felt its incredible weight, so much so that even the blunt side could crush a human skull. Then the system sent a notification. "Specialized butcher's knife selected. Divine slaughtering blade effect activated. Each pig killed with this blade will grant 0.13 attribute point." At that moment, Kian's gaze turned to a pig hanging upside down on the automatic conveyor. It was thrashing, letting out furious grunts. Kian explained that the first thing a butcher needed was to learn how to use the knife correctly. He instructed Ye Shuan to try to kill the pig based on his instincts, aiming for the weak point and finishing it with a single blow. Ye Shuan walked slowly to the animal, his heart filled with anxiety. Holding the newly selected knife firmly, his cold and emotionless eyes fixed on the target. Thanks to his overwhelming strength, he raised the blade and brought it down forcefully. The pig let out an agonizing scream that echoed throughout the slaughterhouse. Fresh blood gushed like a fountain, splashing on the floor. 3 seconds later, the poor pig finally stopped breathing. The system immediately displayed a notification. "God Pig Butcher Ye Shuan has successfully slaughtered a fat pig. Experience plus 1%. Swine tribe bonus damage increased by 1%. Plus 0.1 free attribute point." Kian burst out laughing. "Very good," he said, acknowledging Shuan's strength but noting with slight disappointment that the blow was not precise enough, as it failed to kill the pig instantly. He reminded his son to aim for the main artery. If the blade was fast and ruthless enough, the animal wouldn't even have time to scream. Shuan just nodded, showing he understood, although his face remained practically expressionless. Seeing that his son didn't seem excited about the slaughter, Ye Shuan encouraged him. "I know that repeatedly killing pigs can be boring, but it's from this trade that we make our living." Before he could continue, Shuan interrupted with a gesture, pointing to the herd of pigs and asking for permission to slaughter the rest. Seeing his son's initiative, Kian smiled proudly. "That's my boy. If you want, you can even slaughter Uncle Li's pigs and Uncle Xian's too." Thus began Shuan's journey as a butcher at the slaughterhouse. He repeated the process countless times until he gained skill. In the beginning, he needed to use his skills and several blows to finish the job, but as he improved, he was able to slaughter a pig cleanly in just 3 blows. Sometimes with his dominant hand, 1 blow was enough, sending the animal away without even a squeal, just like his father. Over time, Shuan's techniques visibly improved. He no longer needed to depend on any skills. The number of necessary blows continued to decrease, and of course for each pig killed, the system notified him. God Pig Butcher Ye Shuan has successfully slaughtered a fat pig. Experience plus 1%. Swine tribe damage bonus increased by 1%. Plus 0.1 free attribute point. By the end of the day, he had slaughtered a total of 49 pigs. His swine tribe damage bonus had reached 100%, and his 3 main attributes had increased from 10 to 14.9. If his arms hadn't been so sore that he couldn't lift them anymore, he would have continued slaughtering a few more. Kian's colleagues were impressed. They were shocked at how quickly his son learned. Some even questioned if Shuan was really his biological son after all. In just one day, he had achieved what took them a whole week. Proud of the compliments, Ye Shuan smiled radiantly. "Don't be so surprised. My son is a god-level butcher." Fortunately, Shuan's profession was limited to butchering pigs. Otherwise, Ye Shuan truly believed that his son could become a butcher so terrifying that he would make the entire world tremble before him. At that moment, Shuan was still staring intently at the butcher's knife in his hand. A strange feeling arose within him. He couldn't explain why, but killing pigs seemed incredibly relaxing and satisfying, as if he could continue doing it forever without getting tired. Right there, Shuan gained absolute confidence. Even if someone has a combat profession, maybe they won't be able to beat me. Maybe it's time to leave the slaughterhouse for a short trip. The next day, Shuan packed his backpack and left home. Inside were his butcher's knife, some food, water, and a drink. Slaughtering pigs at the slaughterhouse was safe, but the efficiency was too low. This world was inhabited by countless races and infested with monsters. Humanity was no longer divided by national borders, but by the Human Federation, which had 9 special zones. Qingcheng City, where Shuan lived, was on the edge of Special Zone 5. As soon as someone left the area of human territory influence, they had to face a variety of dangerous races, many of which saw humans as food. However, for those with a combat profession, the outside world was the best place to train and get stronger. Staying in safe environments always meant never becoming a true elite warrior. Before leaving the city, Shuan went through a simple registration procedure at the gate. The guard reminded him, "As a life skill professional, you are only allowed to work within a 1-kilometer radius of the city. Going outside, that is extremely dangerous, understood?" "Understood," Shuan replied, signing obediently before turning and walking on. His calmness left the guard slightly surprised. The world outside was nothing like the safety of the city, wild, desolate, covered in tall weeds that grew unchecked. The further Shuan advanced, the quieter everything became, until only the sound of the wind passing by his ears remained. Upon entering a dense thicket, Shuan was on alert. He had a vague feeling that something or someone was watching. He pulled his backpack forward and placed his hand on his trustworthy butcher's knife. Suddenly, a black shadow jumped from the bushes. It was a humanoid creature about 1 meter tall with green skin, holding a small knife and screaming as it advanced toward Shuan. He stared at it and quickly identified its race. A goblin. Without hesitation, Shuan activated the butcher's blood shadow skill. A wave of killing intent exploded, causing the goblin to freeze in fear for a full second. In that instant, Shuan took advantage, advanced, and delivered a top-down blow. The goblin didn't even have time to react before being cut in half. Thanks to the 100% bonus damage from the swine enemy skill, eliminating it was very easy. A system notification appeared. Butcher Shuan has slaughtered a special pig using the butcher's knife. Experience plus 5%. Swine tribe damage bonus increased by 1%. Plus 0.1 free attribute point. Ye Shuan realized that the stronger the pig-like creatures he killed, the better the rewards would be. After all, killing a common pig only gave him 1% experience. This goblin gave him 5%. The time it took to kill goblins and pigs was practically the same, but the reward for goblins was clearly better. He remembered the professor's warning. Goblins are cunning, aggressive, and highly united. If one appears in front of you, it's a distraction. The real ones will ambush you from behind. In other words, if there was a goblin there, there was certainly an entire group nearby. As Shuan predicted, a band of goblins slowly emerged from their hiding place. Their eyes burned with fury as they stared at him, but Shuan only saw large bags of experience. He shouted with a smile, "Come on, ugly pigs!" The goblins advanced in unison, and Shuan did not retreat. On the contrary, he grabbed his butcher's knife, ran into the middle of the group, and began to kill. At that time, goblins firmly occupied the bottom of the food chain. If it weren't for their insane reproduction rate, their species would have been extinct a long time ago. Ye Shuan brandished the knife again. The nearest goblin didn't even have time to scream before it fell dead, motionless, without even twitching. The system continued to sound notifications as Shuan took down each goblin. Butcher Shuan has killed a special pig using the butcher's knife. Experience plus 5%. Swine tribe bonus damage 1%. Plus 0.1 free attribute point. Ye Shuan cut each vital point cleanly. To him, those ferocious goblins were no different from fat pigs in a slaughterhouse. As long as he hit the weak point, killing a goblin or a pig made no difference at all. Finally, only one goblin remained alive. It trembled in terror as it watched its companions fall one by one. Its body shook uncontrollably, and when it met Shuan's cold and motionless gaze, it turned and fled. But Shuan did not run after it. Instead, he followed it silently from a distance, knowing that goblins lived in tribal groups. Following one meant finding the whole nest. And indeed, the goblin ran into a dark cave. Ye Shuan didn't hesitate. He entered the place, the corners of his mouth curling into a chilling, crazed smile, the smile of a true maniac. Moments later, the agonizing screams of goblins echoed from the back of the cave. The strong smell of blood had quickly filled the air. With the Swine Tribe Nemesis ability bonus, now at 100% damage, and armed with the slaughter techniques passed down by his father, Shuan's blade moved with unbelievable speed. An hour later, there wasn't a single goblin left alive in the cave. The blood-soaked floor was covered in scattered bodies, most of them intact except for one detail. A deep, clean cut on the throat. A fatal blow. Coming out of combat mode, Ye Shuan began to review his results. In just 1 hour, he had killed 73 goblins. It was risky, but the gain in power in the wilderness was far beyond what he could get at the slaughterhouse. 1 hour of fighting was worth a whole day of pig slaughtering. Shuan's current attributes: Strength, 25, Agility, 25, Spirit, 25, Swine Nemesis, bonus, 120%. Without stopping, Ye Shuan advanced deeper into the cave. The further he went, the stronger the nauseating stench of blood and rot became, to the point of causing nausea. Inside, he found what seemed to be the goblin's breeding ground, blocked by a wooden door. Ye Shuan raised his foot and broke it down. Inside was a woman covered in dirt, her clothes still intact, and several goblin children. Despite the grime, the woman showed no signs of abuse. Her eyes widened with hope the instant she saw Shuan. Even with her mouth gagged, she struggled to emit muffled sounds, begging him to save her. In Shuan's eyes, all creatures in the world were pigs. Even that girl, trembling with fear, made him feel nothing. The girl's muffled sound sounded to him like the grunt of a pig about to be slaughtered. With a poker face, he slowly raised his butcher's knife. The scene terrified the girl, who burst into tears, screaming in despair and begging not to be killed. In reality, Shuan was just killing the 2 little goblins next to her. Although the woman was an ugly pig in his eyes, her clean clothes proved that she had not been violated by the goblins. Ye Shuan was not a killer, realizing that he was just cutting her bonds to free her. The woman was extremely surprised. Moments before, she believed she was about to die, as most adventurers believed that people violated by goblins did not deserve to live. Ye Shuan told her not to worry, as all the goblins had been exterminated. The girl slowly calmed down when she realized she had been saved. Then she ran to hug him tightly, crying intensely. Thank you so much. I was almost violated by those goblins. You killed them all, you're really strong. Are you a professional warrior? She kept asking. But Shuan didn't answer. He just turned and slowly left the cave. Seeing this, the girl quickly introduced herself as Ye Shuan and asked his name. Only then did Shuan reluctantly answer. Outside, he pointed the way back to the city and prepared to continue hunting more pigs. The power gained from the killing excited him deeply. But soon after, he realized that Ye Shuan was following him in silence. When she let her guard down, Ye Shuan approached without making a sound, scaring her to the point of screaming in terror. He asked why she wasn't returning to the city and insisted on following him. Was she a goblin spy? Irritated, Ye Shuan pulled out his butcher's knife. The steel reflected a cold glow. Ye Shuan turned pale as a sheet. Wait, don't kill me. I don't dare to go alone. It was clear that she was still traumatized by the goblin nightmare. If it hadn't been for Shuan's timely arrival, the consequences would have been terrible. He asked her why she had appeared there. She replied that her mother's birthday would be in a few days, and that she wanted to bring her a blood flower as a gift. That's why she had secretly gone out to look for it, but ended up being captured by goblins. Noticing that Shuan's knife was damaged, the girl proposed a deal. If he helped her find the blood flower, she would help him get the best blacksmith in the city to forge a new knife. Ye Shuan didn't give much importance to the matter. He asked if she had any idea how much it cost to have the best blacksmith in the city create a weapon. He doubted she had that much money and told her to go back alone and not follow him anymore. The girl was confused and wondered if that man had some kind of mental problem. After all, she was a beautiful young woman with a seductive body. So why did he always treat her so coldly? Terrified of being alone, she ran after Shuan and asked if he knew who her father was. She introduced herself as the daughter of Xia Beihai. Shuan's heart immediately sank. In the city of Tan, the Xia family was a power that could not be underestimated. Xia Beihai was a powerful expert who had just reached the Grandmaster level 9, just one step away from the Holy Master realm. At that moment, all of Shuan's vigilance disappeared. A smile flashed on his face. He had been tormenting himself about how to get a high-quality butcher knife. His parents were just common people and could not help him, but the Ye family was so rich that they couldn't spend all their money even if they tried. They could certainly find a skilled blacksmith. Then the girl took out a small medallion, an amulet engraved with the Ye character. When I left home, my father gave me this to protect me. Even transcendent experts couldn't hurt me, but those goblins were treacherous and ambushed me, which is why I was captured. But they couldn't touch me, so they kept me locked up. Her voice became lower and lower as if she were embarrassed. Shuan approached and stared at the medallion. He immediately recognized that it was a genuine artifact from the Ye family. He put his butcher knife back in its sheath and declared, "Miss Ye, rest assured, from this moment on, your matters are my matters. I will help you find the flower, and when we're done, you will help me forge a new knife." "Agreed." "Agreed," Zinana replied promptly. They both laughed out loud, each believing they had gotten the best deal. Zinana pulled out the map and opened it carefully in front of him. "I bought this map from someone else. It marked the location where the giant blood moon snake once appeared. If we find it, we're sure to find blood moon flowers nearby." She pointed to a place on the map, and Shuan asked, "Is this giant blood moon snake a giant snake?" The girl nodded and explained that, according to the survival manual, that monster had a power equivalent to a level 9 apprentice. She was worried that with his current strength, he would not be able to defeat it, but Shuan didn't care. An expression of excitement appeared on his face just at the thought of seeing a giant snake. The girl stared in disbelief, not knowing if he had heard or understood what she had said. But since he killed so many goblins, I guess he must be a divine-level professional. "Let's go," Shuan said with a smile, suggesting that she lead the way. That smile suddenly made her uncomfortable. She didn't know why, but conflicting feelings arose within her, trust and distrust at the same time. Following the map, it didn't take long to find the first monster, a gigantic rhinoceros that was calmly passing by. Its entire body was covered with thick silver armor plates that shone in the sun. "We need to stay quiet and not disturb it," Tia Nanan advised. "If this rhinoceros gets angry, its strength is equivalent to a level 7 apprentice. It's better to go round." But before she could finish speaking, Shuan was already standing, holding his butcher knife, walking slowly toward the animal. Pointing the blade at the beast, he shouted, "If you dare to eat grass today, you will dare to eat people tomorrow. There's no way I can let you live." Xianan was horrified. She had no idea where Shuan got such absurd logic. Was that really something a normal person would say? But at that moment, Shuan was already running toward the monster, to the girl's terror. The rhinoceros also noticed him, but before it could react, Shuan was already right in front of it. He brandished the knife, and the animal could only raise its head once, before a red cut flashed across its throat. Shuan continued to strike several times, until the poor rhinoceros collapsed on the ground, without even being able to let out a roar. Xianan remained paralyzed with shock. She never expected Shuan to kill the rhinoceros so easily. After all, they were famous for their extreme defense. Their thick silver armor was considered practically impenetrable, and yet, in front of Shuan, the monster did not resist a single blow. Nana was stunned. A single cut had killed a giant silver-horned rhinoceros. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she would never have believed such a scene. After killing the rhinoceros, the system quickly updated Shuan's level, which had increased again. He had now become a level 7 apprentice. He opened his status screen. Name, Shuan. Class, God-level pig butcher. Level, apprentice rank 7, 13.1%. Strength, 27. Agility, 27. Spirit, 26. Class talent, pig enemies, the divine butcher's blade. Class skill, blood shadow carnage, level 1. Effects. When attacking pigs, it causes 122% additional damage. For each pig killed, this talent increases by 1%. Damage received from pigs is reduced by half. And Shuan was satisfied with his attributes, although he was not happy with one thing. His butcher knife clearly showed signs of wear and tear and damage. It probably wouldn't last much longer. Climbing onto the rhinoceros's body, Shuan skillfully cut a long silver horn from its head. This was a valuable material for forging equipment and could also be sold for a good price. The giant silver-horned rhinoceros's armor was also excellent, but too heavy and inconvenient to carry. So Shuan left it behind, put the horn in his backpack, and patted Xianana on the shoulder, who was still paralyzed with shock. "Let's go. What are you waiting for?" Still not fully recovered, Xianan silently followed. Soon after, she witnessed something even more unbelievable. On the way, no matter what kind of fierce beast appeared in Shuan's hands, it was basically a one-hit kill. If one hit wasn't enough, two were sufficient. In addition, Shuan's killing intent was so intense that he would immediately advance and cut down practically any beast within his field of vision with a single blow, and the reasons he gave for killing were absurd. This one seems to have heat stroke. That one seems sick. That one's fur is too long. This one dyed its hair like Felipe Neto. Despite being in a dangerous jungle full of deadly beasts, João seemed to be simply slaughtering pigs in his own backyard. After walking for a while, Janana seemed to remember something. She ran to him, her eyes full of curiosity. "Shuan, what is your profession?" Shuan replied honestly, "I'm just a pig butcher." "Impossible. You're only a 6th-level apprentice, but you can easily kill enemies 2 levels above you. At the very least, you must have an epic-level combat class." Although Xiaonan didn't have much experience in the world, she came from a great family and had basic knowledge. "Believe it or not, I don't care." Ye Shuan shrugged. His relationship with Xiaonan was purely one of interest, so he had no obligation to clarify her doubts. "We're almost at the giant snake's location," Si Anana said, looking at the map with her eyes shining with excitement, leading the way. What Ye Shuan didn't expect was to meet acquaintances there. Not far away, a group of people was also training. It was Director Jiao Ming, accompanied by Shuling Xuan and Liu Jinlang. Several students who had awakened combat classes were clearly being led by Diomingo in an extreme training exercise. With his strength, as long as Shuling Xuan and the others didn't act recklessly, their safety was guaranteed. Xiaoming reminded them to observe carefully and learn from the combat experiences, as their progress represented the academy's future. At that moment, all of Liu Jinlong's attention was on Shuling Xuan. Just being next to her made him feel happy. However, Shuling Xuan found his attitude extremely irritating. As they walked, Jiao Ming suddenly shouted, "Wait a moment, there's someone ahead. Who's there? Show yourselves now. Don't try to hide in the shadows, or don't blame me for not showing mercy." Yeshua remained silent, walking slowly forward. The moment he and Xiaonan appeared, both sides froze. Yeshua also didn't expect to meet that group there. "Yeshua, why is it you? What are you doing here?" Liu Jinzhong exclaimed, shocked. Since he had been humiliated in front of the crowd by Yeshua, Liu Jinlong longed for revenge. But what was a life skill class like his doing in the wild? There were no pigs to beat here. "Just passing by," Ye Shuan replied calmly. "Just passing by. Do you even believe that? Nonsense. I think you just can't forget Sister Shuling Xuan and are following us shamelessly all the way here, aren't you?" A slightly plump girl behind Shuling Xuan sneered. The moment she said that, everyone's expressions changed, as if they had understood everything. It was no wonder that a life skill class like Xuan's would appear in such a remote region. If he had only come to bother Shuling Xuan, then everything made sense. Ye Shuan felt deeply discouraged. He wondered to himself if there was really anyone on Earth who could be interested in a pig's head. "If there is, leave a comment below," the group murmured among themselves. At first, Shuling Xuan hadn't thought much about it, but after hearing the comments, her look at Xuan became impatient. "Ye Shuan, I thought I made it perfectly clear last time. Why are you still following me? Between us, there can never be any kind of relationship, since we are people from different worlds for a long time. Stop bothering me." Upon hearing those words, Ye Shuan's hand began to tremble. At that moment, he really wanted to butcher all those foolish idiots who thought they were always right there. But considering that Jiao Ming was nearby, he held back the impulse. He didn't like to argue with pigs anyway. Sooner or later, a single cut would be enough. However, in the eyes of others, his silence was taken as weakness. Liu Jinlong laughed even more maliciously as he took a step forward. "Ye Shuan, you still dare to appear in front of me? Great. Very good. I was worried that you would run away and I wouldn't be able to find you." At the same time, a long saber appeared in his hand. As soon as the blade left the sheath, it shone with a cold and frightening light. Could Brother Liu Jinlong's blade really be a spiritual weapon? "Yes, my uncle is a blacksmith. I've seen spiritual weapons before. This blade has already reached the lower royal level." Spiritual weapons were on a completely different level from common weapons. Even Jiao Ming was surprised. In just a few days, Liu Donglong had already reached level 4 apprentice. With that spiritual weapon, he could probably face even a level 6 apprentice. I felt that I had correctly judged the potential of my students after all. However, Shuli and Xuan only shook their heads with indifference. "Ye Shuan, I already warned you. Leave Qingcheng City. This time I won't help you." She thought she had been hard enough with her words last time, but even so, Yeshua followed her like a leech to the jungle. If I helped again, wouldn't that make him mistakenly believe that I still have feelings for him? Seeing the atmosphere getting tense, Xianana approached Yeshua and whispered, "Yeshua, do you have some kind of feud with these people?" But instead of fear, Shuan's face showed only a flaming intensity. His eyes were fixed on the saber in Liu Junlong's hand, and he asked her, "How much is his weapon worth?" The question left Xianana stunned for a moment, but she soon replied, "A lower royal-class spiritual weapon can be sold for a few 100,000, but honestly, his blade's quality is only average. A few 100,000 is enough." Ye Shuan felt satisfied. His father spent the whole year wielding a butcher knife at the slaughterhouse, and still couldn't earn that much. Hearing Ye Shuan treat the spiritual weapon as if it were already his, Liu Delong's fury exploded. "Damn pig butcher, who do you think you are?" he roared, raising the saber and advancing with a blow so fast that his eyes could barely keep up with the blade as it howled through the air, determined to regain his lost pride. Yeshua raised his butcher knife to block. A metallic clang echoed. Sparks flew everywhere. The knife in Yeshua's hand broke in half. Half of the blade spun a few times in the air before embedding itself in the ground. Meanwhile, Lidio Long's saber remained perfectly sharp, without a single scratch. Compared to a spiritual weapon, common steel was as fragile as paper. "Ha ha ha, your butcher knife is broken. From now on, you won't even be able to kill pigs." Liu Donglong laughed uncontrollably, finally venting all the humiliation and resentment he had accumulated. As he prepared to kill Ye Shuan, Jiaoming made no mention of intervening. In his eyes, Ye Shuan had been too foolish to provoke someone as strong and influential as Liu Donglong. To everyone's shock, Ye Shuan simply threw away the broken blade and said clearly, "To deal with you, I don't even need a knife." Liu Delong's face twisted in fury. "So you still can't accept reality? Very well, don't blame me for being ruthless." Once again, Liu Jinlong advanced with the saber raised, this time determined to kill Ye Shuan. In this world, the strong killing the weak in the wild was nothing uncommon. And with his family's influence, he believed no one would dare to denounce him. And Zhuang closed his fist, firmed his leg, and launched a direct punch to Liu Donglong's chest. In that instant, he didn't even have time to react. The sound of bones breaking echoed, making everyone's teeth grind. Liu Donglong's body flew back like a kite with a cut string, thrown by Shuan's punch. He screamed in pain as his chest sank in a grotesque arc, his ribs visibly shattered. The scene left everyone paralyzed. No one could imagine that a simple pig butcher like Shuan would be able to defeat Liu Donglong so easily. A life skill class defeating a combat class was simply absurd. Even Jimin looked at Shuan, shocked. "You've already reached the 7th level apprentice." The moment he said that, the faces of the students from Qingcheng City High School were filled with disbelief. Even Shuling Xuan was no exception. And this story ends here. If you liked it, comment asking for part 2, and if you haven't left a like at the beginning of the video, take the opportunity to do so now, and subscribe to the channel.